Okay, so my name's Veronica Chapman, and my husband and I are the owners of Pro Digital Photos. So I don't know if any of you have met me or Cory or not, but we're in and out of the store once in a while, so our faces would be familiar. We're also here with our store manager, Whitney. She's the one that's having a baby in a couple months here, so and we're glad she was here. She's the one that greeted everyone when they came in. And then we're also excited because two of our employees are here sitting on the front row. So we are excited that they're here. They're actually photographers as well, so this is something that they wanted to come see, even though they work with us. So we're glad to be here. We're glad to meet a bunch of new faces and a lot of new local photographers that some of us haven't met before. So we're excited just to get to know you guys as well and create new friendships along the way. Let me tell you just a little bit about start off by telling you a little bit about Pro Digital Photos and some of the products we offer. That's the topic I'm going to cover, and when I'm done, I'm going to turn the time over to Cory, and he's going to present on some of the tips and tricks and technical pointers that might be good for you in submitting your files and ordering products with us. So a little bit about us is, this is where I give all the credit to my husband, is in 2002, he started our business as an online website in college. He was attending UVU in a business class, and was assigned to start a business. And he was also taking an HTML class and created prodigitalphotos.com. And at the time, I remember thinking, why would you ever name your name Pro Digital? Like, no one has digital. No one had a digital camera then. And so it's just funny to see how the times have changed, because now, you know, film is so vintage and such an old thing. And when he created our website, he was kind of seeing the future of how the changes have come. So anyway, so my husband started the website, and over the years, 10 years later, I guess 11 years now, we've just grown with the trends and have adapted to the change of everything going digital, and we've been really successful in doing so. If any of you have been into our store before, you would know that we are not a traditional photo lab. We are a professional lab, but we definitely stand out amongst our competitors. And just to give you an idea of the feeling you would get when you walk into our store, the first comment is, wow, it smells so good in here. What is that? And the next comment is, oh my gosh, who decorates your store? And the next comment is, I don't want to leave. Can I just hang out here all day? And so these are seriously the comments we get the second someone comes in our store. And that happened on purpose. We've made it an effort to cater to everyone's emotion when they come in. We want them to feel comfortable. We want it to be inviting. We want it to be very visual and appealing and inspiring to anyone who wants to do something with their photos. So if you come in our store, you'll get that feeling. Same as when you walked in today, you were greeted by our manager. She handed you a cute water bottle, a little snack. That goes with our customers as well. When they come into our store and someone sits at a kiosk, we always give them a water bottle and a granola bar. We want them to feel comfortable. We don't want them to feel rushed. We want them to know we're there to help them and answer any questions they have while they're in our store. For those that bring kids in our store, we also have some toys we pull out. We give them balloons or a sticker. We offer them a Smartie or a treat, something like that, so that the parents can order and feel comfortable while their kids are also kind of being helped out as well, so they can enjoy the experience too and want to come back. Some of the products we offer, we did set up a table display over here. A lot of different products. If you go to our website, prodigitalphotos.com, you can browse through our site, which you'll see all the products we offer. But some of the examples, this big canvas I think it's really stunning. It's a new product that we just came out with called Metallic Canvas, and so it has a shimmer to it. When the lights turn on, you'll be able to see that a little bit better. We've got metal. We print on photo tiles. We offer boutique mugs. We've got some iPhone covers and iPad covers. Hanging in the center is a magnetic dry erase board, so you can write with the marker and erase it, and also post little Post-its or little cards with your magnets on there. So that's kind of a fun new product. We do calendars. We've got puzzles. A lot of different products to give you ideas of how you can think outside of just offering your clients maybe some basic digital prints or basic 4x6s or a 11x14, kind of thinking out of the box so they feel like they're getting something a little more trendy or unique to them. The other thing I wanted to talk about is in the subject of what products we offer is how you can order them. So there's 2 ways you can order a product. You can, one, choose one of our templates, which is a design that's already made. So for example, if you wanted to order one of our boutique mugs, you can go to our mug page on our website and then click. There's always a button on every product that you get to. There's a button that says Order Now. And if you click the Order Now button, you'll be taken to our template gallery. So it'll show you all these pre-designed templates for mugs. So if you found a cute little Christmassy template that said ho, 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 you would simply drag and drop your images into that template, click order, and you now order that finished product with your photos and a cute design. The second type of product we offer is what we call our ploppers. And our ploppers are when you just simply plop in your own design into a product. So all of our products we do offer them in ploppers. So if you wanted to order a mug, but you wanted to make it your own design with your own logo or own graphics, you would just simply download our Photoshop file with the specs and then create your design, save it as a JPEG, and then you would just plop it into our mug plopper and order it that way. So if you browse through our website, you'll see all the different kind of photo products we offer, like iPhone covers, iPads, mugs, calendars. In all of those categories, you can order one of our templates or one of our ploppers. I wanted to show you just an example on the website really quick of those 2 options. So this is the homepage of our website, prodigitalphotos.com. And you'll see on the top left, there's a couple different tabs. You can find all of our products under those tabs. And then we kind of have our featured products on the homepage of our site to easily get to that way. So right here, I'm on the homepage of our website. And if I were to click on, it looks like I just did. If I were to click on that header that said graduation cards, it took me to the graduation card page. And when you get to this page, it just has pricing and some information there. But like I said, if you click the Order Now button, it will take you to this page, which shows you all of our templates. These are pre-made designs that are current in the trends of design. And what you would do is just simply choose the one you like, click on it, and then drag and drop your images into the card. So this one right here, below each template, you can also click Preview Card, and it will pull it up a little bit bigger so you can see the design a little bit better visually. So we have hundreds, I would almost say thousands of templates if you were to add them all together. One of the most popular templates we have in our product category is holiday cards. We're really, really well known for our holiday cards every year. We've got hundreds and hundreds of different designs that you just simply put your photo in and order. So the second option, just to kind of finish up on the products, the 2 categories, would be ploppers. And so one of our most popular products that people order with ploppers is press printed cards. So a lot of photographers are ordering, they're designing a baby announcement for a client or a wedding announcement, or right now it's graduation season, and this is such a new trend right now with high school seniors. It wasn't popular at all when I graduated. There weren't so many photographers around. You had the school photographer and that was it, and it wasn't really anything fancy. Now you can choose, people out there can choose any photographer they want to photograph their high school senior, and then sometimes you as a photographer or coming to us chooses a template and just simply puts their high school senior pictures in it and orders a cute graduation card. But one of our most popular, like I was saying, ploppers is the card, press printed cards. The next thing I wanted to talk about is we have this regular retail site for regular customers. Anyone can order on this site, whether they're a photographer or a regular, just the mom next door who wants to order something fun with their photos. The second option we have, you'll see at the top left, there's a button that says Pro. If you were to click on this button, this is how you access our Pro site. What our Pro site is, it's a separate site that offers wholesale pricing to photographers and designers only. And we don't advertise this. We don't ever tell our regular customers about it because we won't give them wholesale pricing. And to be honest, no one's really ever went and filled out an application unless they actually qualified. But what you would do is you would go to this link and you read the kind of the qualifications right there. And at the bottom, there's a little link that says online application. If you fill out that application, it's really quick. You just fill out your name, business name, contact information, and hit submit. All of those applications actually come directly to me. And I make sure that your business is a business. I make sure you have the website you said you had. And if you do, then I reply within 24 hours and give you a personal login password and some just brief information about your pro site access. You'll also receive a little cute paper sample pack in the mail. And I put that on the table here so you guys can look at it afterwards and see what it's like. But they're all the loose cards on the table. So you'll get a pearl paper, you'll get metallic, you'll get pro luster, you'll get linen. You'll see samples of the different card options we have, window cards, slider cards, die cut cards, different shapes, different sizes, and it will say on each card what paper type it is and things like that. So when you sign up for a pro account, it doesn't cost you anything, but you do have to be an actual photographer or designer to have access there. Some of the benefits about having a pro site or a pro account and being able to order wholesale is it gives you an advantage to up your price. And instead of ordering at a retail price, you're ordering at a wholesale price. You can have a little margin there to create your pricing for your customers. One of the reasons why we also created a pro account, a pro site, is we had a lot of photographers coming in saying, I love referring people to you, but then they know how much I'm getting, how much I have to pay, and then it's hard for me to turn it around and sell it to them. And so we wanted to just distinguish the two and give you lower pricing. One of the main qualifications, though, to order through our pro site is you have to be a pro. And what that means is we don't edit any of your color, so it's just a direct output site. And so you do need to have your monitor calibrated properly, and Cory will kind of talk about some of those things, and if you have questions, you can ask him, and he'll know all the answers. You do have to know how to properly use our specs and submit the proper specs for your cards or different products. We don't do redos on the pro site. It's meant to be for people that know what they're doing. If you don't know at first, we can answer some questions, get you set up until you're running smoothly. But if we're having to redo orders, edit your color, you're not happy with things like that, then you would just order through our regular website. So it is a difference for people who are taking the time to do the work. They'll get the cheaper pricing. So really quick. The next thing I wanted to talk about is some of the extra benefits of the pro site, of having a pro account or being a photographer. One of the things we offer to photographers here locally or nationally is if you want to refer your customers to a pro lab, that's what's great about us having a retail site is you can say, here's your disc with your images. I recommend printing your photos or getting your holiday cards or doing a baby announcement with these baby photos at Pro Digital Photos. And you know you're sending them to a professional photo lab that's going to take care of them. And the same story of what I told you about the whole experience of them coming into our store is the same experience they're going to get whether they email us, call us, place an order online. You know that they're going to be taken care of. So you know you're not sending them to just a box grocery store lab, that you know they're being taken care of professionally, and we're going to do whatever it takes to keep them happy, which in result makes you look good as well. So one of the perks that we give out, you just have to email us and we'll give it to you, is a free coupon stack. There's 2 coupons we give out. One is for 50 free 4x6 prints, and one is for 1 free 11x14 enlargement. And if you tell us what one you would prefer to hand out to your clients, we mail you out a little stack of 25. And we allow you to give out one of those coupons per paying client, and you would say, try them out, it's free. So that way they can actually get something with their photos instead of just letting them sit on their computer or their disk that you gave them. It also allows them to practice ordering online, gets them a feel for our site, and hopefully gets them ordering more products with the photos that you just shot with their family or whatever photo shoot you did. The other thing I wanted to point out on the table, this is just an option, it's kind of a new trend that we've seen here locally, is, and I think it's pretty common here in Utah especially, is a lot of the photographers are handing out their CDs. And I know there's pros and cons to that, and some people are doing that and some people aren't. And either way is fine. But for those that are handing out their CDs, their customers, their clients, your clients are saying, where should I print? The same thing I was telling you, they'll do whatever you say. So if you say, don't print them at Walmart, they won't print them at Walmart. Or please go here and here for this, or here and here for this. I've used them, I trust them. They're going to do whatever you say. They admire you. They look up to you. They want your they want you to refer them somewhere. And one of the ways a lot of our local photographers are handing out their discs, you'll see in this little plastic bag that I've put on the table, they're creating one of our press printed cards. They're called a 5x5 trifold. When you open the 5x5 trifold card, on the middle panel, there's a little CD hub, and you pop your disc on there of what you're handing to them. So when you design your card, you can design it with your logo, a little copyright release, because they're all going to ask you the same question. So why not just not have to repeat and tell them over and over and over? It's all in your little design. And a lot of the people will put in their trifold, I recommend printing your photos at prodigitalphotos.com. If you put that on your trifold, or any type of handout that you're giving out, we will give you any of your paper upgrades for free. So if you want to upgrade to pearl linen paper with UV coating, with rounded corners, we'll do any upgrades for free because you're promoting us. But it's also benefiting you because you're sending them to a lab where they're going to be taken care of. One of the other perks about the Pro site, and also our regular site as well, is we do offer drop shipping. So if you want an order to be shipped to grandma who lives in Texas, but you don't want her to know, well, we do shipping all day long, but if you want it to be shipped, what we call shipped clean, where they don't see our branding or our logo, or they don't know where it came from, you don't want your clients to know you ordered from us, we call it shipping clean. And you just let us know in your order in the comments, can you please ship clean to so-and-so's name and address? We'll gladly do that for you. So it's not a big deal either way, but that's kind of good to know just so you know your options there. The last thing I wanted to talk about is what's new. What's new with us, with Pro Digital Photos? We are always innovating new products. We are always trying to keep up with the new trends of the digital world, and everyone has a website and a blog and 20 different kinds of social media, and designs change the next day and the next day. And so one of the new things we are working on right now is a new website. As much as we love our site, it's going to just be a little bit easier to navigate. The ordering process is also going to be a lot smoother and simpler and awesome. It's already great right now, but we are in the middle, almost more than halfway done of our new website. So hopefully that will be launched in like the next 1 to 2 months. So that's something to look forward to. So keep checking back on our website, because one day it's just going to be fabulous and new. So the other thing to look forward to is every fall we launch all of our new products right before the holiday season. So if we're going to launch any new products or holiday card designs or anything like that, it's in the fall, usually during October, where we launch all of our new products. So last year, I think like 2 years ago, we had a really huge launch. We launched metal, photo tiles, mugs, tumbler cups, a whole bunch of things. Last year we did iPhones, iPads, magnetic calendars, and dry erase boards. So it's always something that we're up to throughout the year to have a big launch. And the other thing to look forward to is Christmas. We love, love, love Christmas time at our store. We are open 24/7, believe it or not. And our employees might not love it so much, but we are open, just printing in the back. Our front doors might not be open all night, but someone's there till usually 3 a.m. But one of our fun things to look forward to is lots of new holiday card designs. We're really well known for our holiday cards and how we package and present them, and it's one of the things that we always look forward to every year. So that's a little bit about us. I am now going to turn the time over to Cory. But before I do that, does anyone have questions for me that I might be able to answer? No? We are on Main Street in Pleasant Grove. It's about a 2-block little short, cute, quaint Main Street. And right next to us is that new cupcake shop. They were on Cupcake Wars. They have a big sign out there saying they won on Cupcake Wars. And then there's a little Mexican restaurant next to them. That was a brand new building. It just was built last summer. So we're just on Main Street in Pleasant Grove on the east side. So we've been in that location for about 3 years now. So, and when you go to our store, you guys need to all come in and just see the experience I was talking about. You won't find it anywhere else. It's definitely unique to us, and we love it. And guys, don't be scared. You might come in. We have a lot of guy customers that have gotten used to it. But when you come in, you'll see some chandeliers here and there and some girly bows on lots of the things, kind of like over here. But it's still a fun place, and we feel like a family. We have a lot of loyal customers that come in, and we love seeing familiar faces. So don't be shy. Come stop by anytime. We're open Monday through Friday from 10 to 7, and then Saturdays from 10 to 2. So, is there any other questions, though, that anyone might have for me? Yeah, we always change up the treats. Right now it's Rice Krispies, so, and our shipping orders get little chocolates right now. So, and then when it's summertime, we've got to change those to something else. But, so yeah.
Is it the same to drop ship to your customer, or is it an added price?
It's just the same shipping price that it would be if you shipped it to yourself, or it's just the actual shipping price. It doesn't cost an additional to have it shipped clean, or just to ship to someone else. So. Anyone else? No? Okay, I appreciate you guys still being here, and we'll turn the time over to Cory.
Still being here.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, so is that on? It's good. One thing I wanted to ask, how many of you guys do offer the service of selling your CD? By show of hands. Like a lot of customers are asking for that, and I know that we get about half the people doing that. And so, like Veronica was sort of talking about, is we kind of offer both those services to help you out, because there was a big demand for photographers trying to have somewhere to send their clients that was representing their photography well. And those coupons that Veronica was talking about, I think are very important, that even if your customer goes to print somewhere else, at least they got something from a pro lab. At least they know what their photos were supposed to look like. And so I like the 4x6 coupon better, just because they get to see most of their photo shoot, or instead of just like 111x14, so they can kind of compare that if they go somewhere else or whatever. But I think it just represents the photographer well to say, you know, we had a lot of photographers express to us that they saw their prints that were printed after they shot them, and they were very unhappy with them because they were like, holy cow, that's not really how it was supposed to look. And along those lines, about how things are supposed to look, is how many color experts do we have in here today? Any? We got one color expert up here. Oh, good, I hired him. Color is a big, crazy world of how color is perceived, how it's dealt with, how it's handled, and now we're getting more and more devices that people are using, and we're progressing. Color is progressing and getting bigger and better, and we're coming a long way. So I'm going to talk a little bit about not so much calibrating your monitor. I could answer some questions about that, but I believe that's a topic that they've already had presented. So we're going to go a little bit more general and kind of assume how many in here have a calibrated monitor? Okay. And how many are planning to do that? They want to do their own color. They're going to be calibrated. They want to do it themselves. And that's a big part of our pro service. Our pro service was set up so pros would have control of their photography. And that's not to say everyone has to do it that way. If you don't want to calibrate your monitor and do color and be in charge of good flesh tones and all that sort of stuff, that's why we have our retail site. We include that in our service to make sure that your stuff looks good and that it's presented in an edited format without you having to spend extra time to do that if that's not something you're into. But the trend these days seems to be going towards photographers who are photographers. They shoot their session and they edit it the way they want it to look. And then that's kind of, like we showed here, 50-50, send it off and send their customer directly to the printer to have it printed, and 50% are still ordering products and trying to be the salesman as well. But we found a lot of photographers can be more successful shooting more sessions rather than editing all the time and selling prints to their customers. I wanted to start off by showing a slide here about a color space. We're going to go over some color spaces here. And color spaces are a little bit, I mean, you've all probably read what you've read about them, chose what you like about them. I'm just going to keep this really general. If you have any really specific questions, we can maybe get to those. How many people here have heard of ProPhoto, the color space? So ProPhoto is a large color space, but in this case, bigger isn't always better. So the problem with large color spaces is most printers aren't able to reproduce very much of that, and most monitors aren't able to show you very much of that. So without a really high-end monitor, it's really hard to capture that and portray it across the whole capture, edit, and print scenario. But one thing that's good about large color spaces is for editing. For editing, large color spaces are great because you have you're never going to have to map colors into a smaller color space when you're editing. So sort of generally how color spaces work, or the theory behind what you want to be, is you want to shoot and edit in the largest color space possible, and then you're going to go to smaller color spaces as you're going to output devices. Most output devices won't print ProPhoto, and their color gamut is nowhere near ProPhoto. So even if the device takes the ProPhoto color space, it's going to interpret it down and map it to a smaller space that it can handle. That's where SRGB sort of comes in. Adobe RGB is kind of a middle-sized space, but SRGB is just the tried and true standard of just awesome for photography in general. It's a really good base. If you don't know much about color spaces, we always recommend everyone starting with doing everything in SRGB. You really won't run into too many weird issues. And the problem with not understanding color spaces is usually the results are good enough that you can't tell that something went wrong. It's just maybe a little bit off, especially us as a lab. A lot of times if someone's doing something funky, we couldn't really tell because we're like, well, that looks vintage to me. I didn't really know. And they're like, no, it's not supposed to be vintage, you know, and there's all this sort of editing going on, and it's hard for us to tell. An example of that would be, well, ProPhoto. If you send ProPhoto into most labs, it's going to print incorrectly, mostly because it's not converted correctly, because it's not standard among Fuji and Kodak and the big guys that they're not accepting it as an input device, so it needs to be converted. So for our lab, like I said, we recommend SRGB. And one of the biggest things with labs is all labs do things a little bit differently. And we've taken the approach of trying to output giving the customer a little more control. This gives a little bit more, creates a couple more problems. But instead of converting everything to sRGB on our end, which is what most photo labs do that accept anything, they'll just convert it down as it comes into the workflow so that they can handle it properly and get consistent color across devices. And what we've tried to do, if you send sRGB, it's always going to print right on all of our devices. The only exception, or the only reason you wouldn't want to do sRGB is we do have devices that can handle a higher output. Photo paper is typically an sRGB color space. Press printed cards, and most presses are actually smaller than an sRGB color space, but it's a closer comparison. But a lot of the wide format and inkjet printing, how many have inkjet printers here and do some of their own printing themselves? Some of those will have a closer to an Adobe RGB color space. And so for all of our photographic prints, you can actually submit your stuff in Adobe RGB, and it will be represented correctly, and it'll be larger on the larger prints, and on photographic silver halide, chemical process prints, it'll be a little bit, that color space will be a little bit smaller. So they may not match one-to-one. But if you were to send Adobe RGB to the press, that's when you'll get a bigger problem, because going to the press, it's actually printing in CMYK, but as a photo lab, we've decided to map everything from an sRGB color space to give a more photorealistic print rather than like a printer's print. And most printers will convert everything with a presentation rendering intent instead of a photographic rendering intent. And sRGB tends to be really good for skin tones and making the photo look really good. But the shortcoming of that is spot colors are a little bit harder to hit, but since we're a photo lab, we're concentrating on the photo and making the photo look good. But back to that Adobe RGB, I pulled it up here. This isn't as drastic on this display as I wanted it to be, but essentially what happens if you send a color space to a printer that doesn't support that color space is you get these color shifts that are very subtle, and there's millions of colors in every color space. But basically, I want you to look at these colors. The one on the left is the number to the far left, 88, 249, 17. In Adobe RGB represents the color to the left. And in sRGB, it represents the color on the right. So if you were to send an Adobe RGB image to the press, you're going to get the color to the right, even though in Photoshop and on your screen, you saw the color on the left. Now, if you had that same color open in Photoshop and you converted it to sRGB, you would see no change in that photo, or that image that's just solid green. You would see the same color green, but Photoshop would have changed the color that represents that brighter green on the left to the correct number in the sRGB color space so that it can be printed correctly. If it's an out-of-gamut color, it would have mapped it to the next closest color. And so that's really important that I recommend it to most people who have any reason to shoot outside or be outside of sRGB to convert it to sRGB before printing, unless they have specific reasons not to. Another thing I wanted to touch really quickly on the two color spaces. In general, sRGB is able to produce warmer and richer skin tones. So most portrait photographers are much happier with an sRGB color space because it's got more of that tonal range for portraiture. Whereas Adobe RGB starts getting out there into some more fluorescence and brighter colors, and that's where the inkjets come in, where they're starting to load green and orange inks, and they're getting some more colors that are out there, and landscape photographers really love that color space. And so I think that's a good rule of thumb for starting out in those two different color spaces. Does anyone have any questions about color spaces or comments about color spaces?
Cory, and it's just because I learned it the hard way, is I thought, buying a new camera, and I thought, okay, I'm going to shoot in a wider space, so I'd set it to Adobe, shoot it at, and then you forget, or you didn't go into Photoshop and set the preferences, to automatically convert for you. That's caught me. So just make sure your camera's set on sRGB in the first place. Like they say, unless you have a reason to go out of it.
Yeah, that's definitely what we're seeing in our lab. And I don't know, but it seems like there's cameras that are shipping in Adobe RGB, and people are forgetting to do that. You can have, like Bryant was saying, you can have Photoshop prompt you or automatically convert it. So like I said, unless you have a real reason to be using these other color spaces, simplify your life and start in sRGB and end in sRGB. Now, does anyone here use ICC Profiles for any of their printers that they do? So just to touch on ICC Profiles really quick, an ICC Profile is basically just going to take your larger color gamut and map it to the color gamut of the printer. Now, this is something we have on all of our printers in our lab, and if you're printing your own stuff, you should be more familiar with ICC Profiles. But a couple years ago, actually it's been a lot of years ago, like 10 years ago, I don't know if it was being pushed from the photographer side or the lab side, but photographers wanted to have the ICC Profiles for the printers in the labs. And things with all these products that we're making, I mean, we have like 7 or 8 different products and processes to make products in our lab. And while it could help you see what your image may look like in a smaller color gamut, color field, sRGB is the best to send to us, because once you start, the problem people ran into when we would give out an ICC profile is they convert their images into that ICC profile, which is destructive editing. It gets rid of a lot of color information and makes that image only suitable for output on that device. So if you're ever dealing with ICC profiles, you only want to have it converted for printing, not saved that way, and not to be kept that way. You really want to keep it in your larger color gamut for the most part. Did I show this slide yet? Yeah, so this was the one we started on. I just wanted to mention on here that your monitor's profile typically is a smaller version of that sRGB. And again, monitors are progressing, and I have a tab here I'll leave open at the end that's a list of monitors that ShootSmarter.com recommends. And Will Crockett and those guys, I don't know if you've heard of any of their real big color guys. And you know, he puts a little disclaimer on there and says, I'm sorry to say, but I can't recommend any sub $1,000 monitor. So I wanted to show that if you really want color accuracy, you're going to be spending some money for it. We've had a lot of success with photographers using their existing monitor, not spending any money on a monitor. Even more important than a high-end monitor is a calibration device. It's really important to calibrate your monitor so that what it's getting, it's displaying properly. And that's really important. Another really good way to get good color from a lab or from printing in general, no matter what your monitor is. If you want to color correct on different devices or you don't want to have a color calibrated monitor, and even if you have a calibrated monitor, you're going to run into the differences between the monitor and the color spaces you're dealing with. And I wanted to see, does anyone know who Shirley is? Veronica knows? Bryant knows who Shirley is. So Kodak used to, this got called Shirley because so I found out this is not the original Shirley, and Shirley started out 50 years ago, and basically Shirley's just a target that you're trying to match skin tones to, and we used to use it back in the film days as Kodak would send out this image and a negative with this image, and when you printed that negative on your printer, your print should look like the print that Kodak sent you. And that's how you made sure that you were printing properly. And most of the printing back then was done in a lab. Well, these days, since half the prep is done outside a lab or all of it, the new version of Shirley is a digital file in this image. And you can take this image and open it in Photoshop, and she may look like really crappy skin tones, like even right now, like not that great, but not really that bad. And if you match to her in your color correcting, when you print, you're going to get a good print. And so this is a really good way to keep your colors consistent and your skin tones consistent across the whole photo shoot. We see a lot of editing that happens by memory. People edit by memory, like, oh, that's a good skin tone, then they go to the next one, that's a good skin tone, that's a good, and they start drifting. Because color can change on how much caffeine's in your system, how much chocolate you've eaten, and your perception of color will change. Well, this image won't change. And I found a video I wanted to show really quick on kind of how to do this. Let's see if I can get it here. We'll just watch this really quickly.
This little video is going to show you how to use a reference image to help you with your color correcting. We've been using reference images for about 30 years. It's an image that has good color and prints well, and therefore we can use it to guide our color correcting staff as to what good color should be. It sounds pretty obvious, but most people try and color correct by memory, which is really difficult. Now I'm going to suggest you use, to start...
It just tells you how to get the image right there, so we'll let it catch up to here. Hopefully it'll start playing.
Loads. And I'm just going to go and pick it up from my downloads folder. There it is there. And one of the most important things you need to do with Shirley is so you don't change the color of it, is you need to lock it. Now on a Mac, I'm going to right-click, Get Info, and I'm going to tick on the Locked button. On the Windows, you go to Properties, and you tell it to set it to Read Only in Properties. So that's a really important step. It means you won't accidentally color correct Shirley. So let's hop over to Lightroom. So in Lightroom, I've imported that Shirley file. You can see the image I want to color correct. Now there's a nice trick in Lightroom. This works really well if you've got a single monitor. If you've got a dual monitor, it's a little bit of a problem because this trick will pop the Shirley on the second monitor. We want the Shirley to be on the high quality monitor, and quite often people's second monitor is not the high quality one. So if you're working in Lightroom, it's not a bad idea for this trick to work a single monitor. Otherwise, it's very hard to do in Lightroom. What you need to do is open Shirley in Photoshop, move Lightroom over a little bit so you can see Photoshop Shirley poking out in the background. But what we can do here is right-click, lock to second window, and then we've got our Shirley. We can bring up the image we want to color correct. We can go to the Develop module, and bingo. You can see what needs to be done to the image on the right to match the image on the left. Okay? So on its own, you may have thought, yeah, that's quite a nice image, but as soon as you bring Shirley up, you see it's quite magenta, a little bit on the yellow side. It could do just a bit on the blue side. It's quite a hard image to color correct, but the Shirley shows us straight away what the problems are. Let's hop over to Adobe Photoshop. Now here you've got the same image up and we've got Shirley hovering in the background. I always open Shirley. It's locked, but if it's active here, I can accidentally color correct it. Just beware of what you're working on. This is the active area, that's the inactive area. So we're going to keep it in the background, and Shirley is going to guide us as to how to color correct this main image. Well, thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful.
So as you can see, and you don't have to use Shirley, you can use any image that you've done that you like that represents your photography and that you've printed and you have the print and you're happy with the print. Really, all this system really takes is the ability to have a digital image that you've printed and you're happy with the print. And you can correct everything to that image and know that you're going to be in the ballpark of good color and where you want to be with all of that. Yeah?
Are you eyeballing her and correcting to what you think, or is there a value that you can read?
No, it's all done by your perception of how close you are to that, because what you'll really find when you start doing it, so without Shirley, you're just trying to make it look good. So Shirley just gives you a base to go back to all the time, so that you can, like I think he was saying, I can't remember, but usually when it's open there, your eyes will be, you know, going back and forth as you're correcting, and you'll find when you start getting too far in one direction and too far in the other, and based on exposure and all that different stuff, you're not going to be able to make it look exactly like her, but it's just a representation, a target, something to keep in mind, and it works really well if you're struggling with getting prints back that you expected. Like what we want to do as a lab is help photographers get what they expected back with the equipment that they have and what they're using. And this is a really inexpensive, free way to get good color on anything, really. It doesn't have to be, you know, high quality or anything like that to get that. So I think here's the list of monitors. So his top pick was a $900 monitor, but the only reason I even show this list is just to give you an idea of what your expectations should be when you start trying to color match prints to your monitor. Because like I said, I mean, I would say 90% of all our photographers that come and print with us, they use the monitor that they already have. They don't go out and buy a new monitor. The biggest thing is buying the calibration device, which is about $250. And I'll tell you, it's the best $250 you're ever going to spend besides your camera, because you can't do much not knowing what your photography looks like. And so it's very important to calibrate your monitor so that that green color is showing that green color on your monitor so that it's accurate. Any questions about color spaces or anything like that? It all makes perfect sense.
But just a comment too, you guys, I remember when I signed up for your pro account, you guys had us do some test prints so that we could do that comparison before we do anything that's ready for the market.
Yeah, that's important too. When you sign up for a pro account, we give you test prints so that you can verify that you're happy with your system. And basically those test prints are the ability for you to print something that represents your photography, and you can get it back and see if it's what you expected to get based on what you saw on your screen. Again, I'm going to throw out there another really important thing about matching a monitor to your print is the light you're viewing your print under. The color of your print is directly related to the light that you're looking at it in. And again, those start at a couple $100 and go up to thousands of dollars to have a viewing box that's actually a industry standard, a D50 lighting that will give you a correct representation of that color on that. Again, most of our customers, the photographers that are starting up or trying to get this system going, they don't go out and buy a light box. The thing that's really good about the industry standard is it's based on daylight. So daylight is your best friend when you're viewing an image that you're trying to match to a monitor. And it works really well. You should view your monitor in a dimly lit, neutral room and then walk out of the room to look at your print. If you can't really tell a discernible difference when you're looking at one and then walking out of the room and looking at the other, you've got pretty good color. If you hold it up right next to your monitor, just the characteristics of being in a dimly lit room, or if you don't have a viewing box, emitted light is going to look much different than reflected light off of the print. So I tend to tell people, look at your monitor and then hold the print and look the other way, and if you can't tell the difference, you're doing pretty good. You'll find all the little nuances when you hold it right next to your monitor, and that's when spending a couple thousand on a monitor and having a viewing box and all that comes into play if you want to get real crazy about color. But in general, we're trying to get the ability to color correct and get a print that you expected is kind of the goal of what you want to try to do.
Is anybody else really colorblind like myself?
Really?
Well, this is really colorblind. So if anybody is going to see me afterwards, I can recommend some plugins that help me. So, you guys ever see my color tones orange online? That's my excuse. It's not my graphic design. It's my disability.
So how much time do you guys need at the end? Want it? Okay, so any questions on color spaces?
I have one question. You mentioned about the inkjet stuff that you're doing in large format. Is there any need to convert those to CMYK or just keep everything RGB, SRGB?
So all the wide format inkjet printers that I know are dealing in RGB. They do everything natively RGB, so there's no reason to ever go CMYK, and they're getting so many inks in there that it's C, LC, M, LC, O, R, G, like, you know, all the colors are getting in there. So really, from a Photo Lab's point of view, I think it's really important that we are staying in sRGB all the time because we want your images to look as close as possible to the original, no matter what you're printing. That's not saying they're going to match each other. That just means they're going to be as close as they possibly can be working in the color space for that product. Like Veronica was saying, a mug. Well, the actual mug has different characteristics of reproducing color when you put it onto it than a photo print. And same with an iPhone cover. That the metal on the back has different characteristics and therefore has a different color space. So all of those things have ICC profiles that map your image to the closest possible map, the closest possible match in that, on that product or in that print. Does that make sense to everyone?
And does the same apply to black and white? Is that...
Yeah, so black and white is exactly the same, and the only separation between black and white is on devices that actually can print using only black ink or gray inks. And the difference would be there is that you're only going to get black, so you don't have to worry much about mapping colors. But one thing to be said about black and white is the hardest to get correct. Most black and white should be printed in the sRGB color space or in process color, because true black and white back in the day wasn't black ink. And if you take a black ink print and put it on a true black and white photo, you'll see that there's color in that black and white photo. And so to get a rich, warm black and white print, and Adobe, the newer versions of Photoshop have different versions of black and white. You can make your own and choose your own. The only way you're going to get those different versions is by printing with all the colors. And so black and white print sometimes can show you really how far off you are, because if it looks perfectly black and white on your screen, but you're not looking at it in grayscale, you have it in RGB, and then you print it and you're getting red back, you know, a really red print, then you know your monitor wasn't showing you the red that was in there. And so black and white can be a helpful tool because they're actually the hardest to get the way you want when you're...
To go to Grayscale when you submit it.
There's no need to, but you can if that's what you like, because you can go to Grayscale to get rid of all that color information. Going to Grayscale means you're printing with black. That's it. You have no other colors, so it's going to print in black, unless the lab side does something different to it. But all of our equipment will print with the black inks if you send a Grayscale image. And unless you specify that you're doing something very particular, and on our Pro service we won't change anything, but a lot of times we'll change stuff on our retail side to make it look better if we feel that they didn't really know what they were doing. It just ended up being that way because of whatever reason. So anything else about that? And then the last thing I'm going to touch on is just like sizing your images and cropping. One of the biggest things we get, and this is mostly from the retail side. I think pros mostly have a handle on this, but I just wanted to touch it really quickly about what resolutions you need to print. In our lab, I've been pretty happy. I've run Pro Digital Photos for 10 years, and I've worked in the industry my whole life. My dad had a photo lab. It was Worldwide Photo here locally years ago. And I've been okay with kind of drawing the line. Our website will give a resolution warning when you drop below 100 DPI. And 300 DPI being perfectly clear. All of our printers are printing in 300 DPI, and I know there's a whole nother kind of argument about what things are printing in, especially wide format printers. They will accept up to 600 and even bigger than that sometimes. But 300 DPI is where we're saying is your perfect print, perfectly clear. It's really hard to discern anything after that without a loop. You can get a loop out and start seeing it, but who looks at photos with a loop? So 300 DPI is pretty much going to cover it. And at 100 DPI, there's no line. There's no point in time, and this is a question we get all the time when we say, you submitted a low resolution image, it's 96 DPI, we just wanted to let you know, and they say, well, how big can I print it? And the real answer is, well, what resolution do you want to print it at? If you want it at 300 DPI, you're going to get a wallet size print. if you're okay with 100 DPI, we can print an 8x10. And there's no point on that scale where we can say, like I said, I've chose 100 to give a resolution warning, but there's no point on that scale that I can say, well, at 101, it's going to look good to you, and at 99, you're going to hate it. Because 99 and 101 aren't going to look that different. But 250 are going to look a lot different. And so, as far as that's concerned, obviously the more resolution you have, the better. But the fact is you don't always have the resolution. We've come a long way with resolution enhancement tools, and there are some programs we have in our lab that are in Photoshop, one of them being Genuine Fractals that you can buy as a plugin yourself and use yourself, that'll help increase that resolution. It's not a magic wand that'll make anything incredibly better, but what I found is it does a good job at making things look more realistic at a viewing distance, and that's actually Genuine Fractal's goal, is to say you have a low resolution picture that you want to print 3 feet. Well, a 3-foot picture you don't stand a foot away from to view at. It's usually about 10 feet. So their algorithms are all based on making it look good at 10 feet, not a foot. And so there is enhancements to be made there, but as a general rule, the more resolution you have, the better. And luckily, cameras these days, you can buy a $100 camera with 12 megapixels, so it's not like we're lacking resolution too much anymore. The issue comes down to if you start doing extreme cropping.
So if I've shot a high resolution image and I want to print it 20 by 30, is it better to give you the source file or to go ahead and render that up a little bit?
So that's a good question, and the way I answer that is if you're okay uploading that giant file, go ahead and do it. We'll wait for it to come. We have a faster download than you probably have an upload. But as a general rule, I tell people to let us do it. It keeps their ordering experience much better. They don't have to worry about getting disconnected. You can easily make a 20 by 30 into like a 150 megabyte file or something crazy. And as a JPEG, that'll be, maybe 20 megabytes. But if you have a couple of those, they take a while to upload, as opposed to what's coming out of your camera, 6 to, I guess they're getting up to like 15 megabytes out of your camera now. And they're getting big. So along those same lines, if you're ordering all 4x6s, it's always good to size those down to 4x6 at 300 DPI so that you don't have to upload 15 megabyte files for your set of 4x6s, which customers who are getting discs from photographers sometimes have problems with. And we have photographers that will give on their disc multiple folders so that people can order smaller stuff quicker, like an 8x10 version. Because even an 8x10 at 300 DPI, even if they were to print an 11x14, it's going to look great. And leave the really large images somewhere else because they don't have as much use for that. Typically out of a photo shoot, you're lucky if the person orders one 20 by 30. They don't need 600 15 megabyte files on their disk. Yeah?
This is just what I do, just as far as workflow, because weddings and families and stuff generate so many big files. Is I will always go in the Lightroom, do stuff, export a copy file, never touch the originals again unless I go above 11x14 or larger. And I'll just output at a 5x7 or 300 DPI, and I use that for everything. That way it's a do no harm workflow, and anything that goes to SMUG or anything like that goes quicker. And a 5x7 at 300 DPI, I'm sure you could probably make a 16x20 out of it at viewing distance, make it look decent.
Yeah, it's very important with megapixels getting so giant to take that into consideration with your clients. They don't know. And we have lots of issues with people trying to upload stuff to us. And their answer is always, I just got a disc from my photographer. That's always the answer. They don't know anything about how they're trying to do it or what they're trying to do. And that's why Veronica was saying it's really important for you guys to recommend how to use the disc that you give them, what to do with that disc, recommend printing it at ProLab. Let them know the right way to go about things so that if they do end up trying to do it their own way, they won't really blame you. They'll always come back to, well, they did tell me, that I should have maybe done it that way or not done it that way. I think that's about it that I have for the color presentation, unless we have any other questions about color or how to deal with color, what to do with color, and how it's dealt with on our end as a lab. Has anyone run into color issues at a lab or printing or on their printer that they want to bring up or say I had this problem and I caught it this way?
There was one thing that when I first started printing in Pro Digital, it was my fault, but everything was coming back darker, and it was because of the brightness of my display. And that, you know, it was like I said, it was my fault. But I used the calibration, you know, my monitor calibrator, but I wasn't setting the right the right density.
Yeah, the brightness. Well, that's a good point, because actually when you do a monitor calibration, it's going to calibrate your colors more so than your density. Now, density is a really tough animal when it comes to matching a monitor to your prints. The biggest reason I always throw out there is turn off the lights and see how dark or light your print is. It's black. But if you were to darken your monitor to the point that it matches your print, you're going to have this really dingy monitor. You can make it match pretty accurately, but the rest of your experience on your computer will be fairly poor. And most monitors will start having lots of artifacts like reds in the highlights, and some weird stuff starts going on. But that's why I give the example of look at your monitor and then look away and look at the print. And take that into consideration, that the density is the toughest thing, because they're completely opposite. And you were saying your prints are coming back darker.
I lowered it. It was at like 120 was the value that it started out. That's the default value for my display calculator. And I dropped it down to 90, and now everything's good.
Yeah. So messing with your monitor will definitely get you to tune it in. The reason most people get dark prints back is because as you darken your monitor, being backlit, it really starts to saturate everything. It looks really good. And back in the day, you could compare it to a slide. You could get away with a slide being too dark, underexposed, because sometimes it looked really saturated and nice. Just put a brighter light behind it and it looks even better. And that's kind of what's happened with our monitors, is as they're darker, they look better, but it makes your prints come back darker. So you kind of have to, there's kind of a balance there between getting what you expect. If you want a monitor that's going to match your print perfectly, you may have a dingier looking monitor than how they ship. And they ship super contrasty and super poppy and actually really cold. I think they ship it like, well, I don't know, some of you probably know color temperature, but it's like 9,300 degrees Kelvin. And in photo, we want to be at like 5,000 or 5,500 Kelvin. Those are all monitor calibration issues, so if anyone's calibrating their monitor, we can talk more specific about that, because that's a whole other animal of getting those colors.
Is there just a rule of thumb that you use if you're going from monitor to monitor things? Say on a scale of 0 to 100 on your brightness, is there a rule of thumb that says put it at 50, put it at 70?
The rule of thumb is don't go from monitor to monitor. So we have all calibrated monitors in our lab, probably like 10 of them, and I always go back to mine. If I'm on someone else's computer, I just feel like I don't know what's going on, because things change, even when they're identical monitors. I mean, I have dual monitors set up, and they're both the exact same monitor, bought at the exact same time with both the same calibration, and I still color correct on one side of it, because I swear the other one looks different. But it's probably the angle in the room of the light coming in and how I'm getting all that. But as far as a recommended balance and all that, it's all about that device. The best thing you can do for all your monitors is just buy that device, turn on the software, and hit go. And if you don't touch anything else, that thing's going to make so much of a difference of getting you into the ballpark. The second you do that, everything else is fine-tuning, like a little bit of density here and a little bit there. And I prefer, even if I don't color correct on my devices, I always calibrate my laptop and everything. I'm just so used to that look of my computers. And monitors and computers do not ship that way. And they're all doing their own thing.
Do you have any tips for preparing your files perhaps differently if you're doing a canvas print versus a metallic? Is there anything that you would suggest differently, or is it just a matter of getting it in that?
That's mostly personal preference of what you're doing. You're right, we have a lot of different products and like metal, and I would say as a rule of thumb, us as a lab, we see a lot of prints and we know what looks cool on different things, but people have different definition of what's cool. So it kind of is totally up to you. Like I said, if you are generally correcting and have your monitors calibrated and you're in the SRGB color space, you're going to be generally happy with everything. Everything outside of that comes down to just your artistic eye and what you want personally. And you know, some people like to on metallic products, make them real contrasty and saturated, like pump up the saturation, make them look funky because they are a funky product, and get a little bit away from the real traditional stuff. But on that same note, we print more that aren't that way, just regular prints with someone saying, oh, let's see how this looks on metal. Oh my gosh, it looks awesome. And on our metal, we have a metal finish that's actual metal, and so you're printing on a gray surface. So you want to talk about weird color spaces, print on gray, and it gets really funky. And we also offer that with a white background, but it just makes it more traditional to bring the whole color space back. So we always tell people when they ask that question, go, are you looking for something unique that's printed on metal? Or are you looking for a real photographic looking print that's on metal? And that's kind of the difference between those two.
So you wouldn't saturate more for canvas?
You could, but as a lab, we want everything to be as close as possible to the original. So you could saturate more on a canvas if you like that look. And canvas has its own color space too. So when you've printed on canvas, you can notice some differences in the way it looks compared to your photo print. And some, maybe some details lost in this certain area or whatever differences in the color space. You certainly can do that to make it stand out. One thing I will say about canvas, since we're kind of talking about differences of images on canvas, is when people do have a really low resolution image, canvas helps it a lot because that texture helps hide the softness or hide the look of the low resolution. So sometimes we have people that really want a big print, and we almost never, I used to be nervous about how low I'd let a customer go on a really big print that I could potentially be redoing because they hate it. And I've really found over the years that a big print at a low resolution is just so much more impressive than a small print at a higher resolution that I tend to say it's worth trying to go bigger and push your customers to order bigger because they're going to be happier with that product and not hang it on their wall and the 16 by 20 is dwarfed by the size of their giant wall. And like we were saying, you don't look at it from a foot away. You're going to be 10 feet away from it. And it's a fine line between where good is and where bad is. It's just such a sliding scale. Focus of the image and the exposure have a lot to do with how good it looks at a low resolution. But I always tell people, every day, all day long, I can show you a poor color, high resolution picture and a super fuzzy low resolution image that's got good color, and you'll pick the color one every time. So if your color is good, it'll trump that high resolution every single time. You want all your other things are in check, your exposure's good, your editing's good, your calibration's good, you're using the right profiles, you're printing at a slightly lower resolution, you're still going to have a superior product than having that off-color, super sharp picture. So,
you guys know what they print a billboard at? And
yeah, like dots this big.
So that same rule, that works as far as, that's what you submit for. And it's the same thing, the further out you are, as long as your color is correct, the image will look really sharp still, because you're so far back.
Yeah, your eye's only able to perceive so much. So as the picture gets bigger, you're typically further away from the print. So don't be too afraid of resolution. I'm sure we all have plenty of megapixels here to print 30 by 40 just fine all day long. The real issue comes down to when you have someone who wants to do extreme cropping into a picture that you've shot from far away. That's really what we're talking about here. If you're not cropping it at all, you have a lot of resolution most of the time. Anything else? We're all good? As far as monitors, if anyone wants any recommendations, I have some good recommendations on monitors that I've used that are more around the $300 range that I'm real happy with if anyone's wanting to have a recommendation. You brought up the multiple monitors. The most important thing about multiple monitors really is that they're the same. If you ever get a monitor that you like and that you're happy with, I've looked for refurbished monitors that they don't manufacture anymore just because I like it, I'm used to it. If I can find them, they're usually cheap, and I just buy them all up. And it's always hard when they stop making a monitor and I have to change to the new monitor, whatever.
On that note, just to add, I have an LED monitor and I have an LCD monitor, and the LCD monitor always takes a little bit of warm-up time before it's at the correct temperature or the correct display. And the LED just, it's on and it's on. But that's one thing also, if you're letting your monitor sleep all the time, you're editing, going to grab a bite to eat and then coming back and not letting it warm back up, that can affect how it's displayed.
And that's where Shirley can help you. Because Shirley will be dark too.
Is there a big difference editing on a laptop versus an external monitor?
Yes, there is. Laptop monitors are typically very poor for color at all. They're all about being thin, light, and cheap to be in the laptop. Any external monitor almost always will be better than your laptop monitor. That being said, photographers hate hearing that. They love editing on the couch in their laptop. And calibrating it does so much for it. It just brings everything into the ballpark. So it's just all about expectations. You kind of got to know if you spend $2,000 on a monitor, $1,000 on a viewing booth, and calibrate, you're going to be really accurate. But let's say you're going to be 96% accurate. But if you cut all the corners and don't really buy anything except the calibration device, you're going to be high 80s still, 88% good. I mean, that last 10% is where all your money's spent. It really is. So it's the best to get the calibration and just do the general stuff first.
Sorry, I asked so many questions.
No, that's good.
I'd be interested to know what most people are using for calibrating. The spider? Or?
Yeah, you have to get a spider. We have a recommendation on our website here. And the good thing about using the one on our website that we recommend is if you call in with any questions, we know the software that you're looking at. So, So it's much easier for us to help you out. It's this i1 Display Pro, and every once in a while they'll go on sale at Amazon. Let's see if they have any. So they're $234 right now. They bounce from $200 to $250, and really I haven't had anyone who's had any problems with this. I mean, this is a really good device. To put it into perspective of how good that price is, the device we use in our shop is $2,500. And I can't really tell the difference between that one and the one we have. But like I said, the last 10%, 5% is where all your money's spent. And we need to be really accurate on our end so that we can deal with problems that arise because we deal with so many images all the time. So I think that's it then.
Hey, do those go bad over time? My spider's 6 years old.
They probably could. I have a really, really old one that stopped working on reflective, which when you're doing your monitor, we're not talking about reflective, and it still does a monitor. So I'm going to say, yes, the hardware could break, and it's going to be out of warranty and everything. Yeah, well, that's hard to say. If you suspect it, that's when you just need to start testing and maybe find another one and see if it does something different, because you'll know when it's not. It's really hard because a lot of devices like monitors, they just fade over time very slowly. And since you brought that up, monitors, when you get them when they're brand new, they're going to change the most in the first 6 months. And they recommend calibrating weekly or even monthly, but it's definitely important to do it in the first 6 months. I probably only do ours once they're all set in. I'm always nervous when they're new. Do it like every month or more. And then after that, every 6 months seems to be fine. The other aspect of that change is if you're using your monitor every day, you're changing with it. And that's what I said about going around the monitors in our lab. Like, I'm always scared of calibrating my monitor again because I know what it's doing. Like, I know where I am with it because I use it every single day, all day long. And so I have to get to a point where I really feel like, okay, it's way off, and I know I'm correcting way different on my monitor to get what I want, to be able to calibrate it again. Because I always dread calibrating it again because I know it's going to change, and I'm used to what I'm used to. So all those things, yeah, come into play with getting good color.
Thanks.
Anything else? Any other questions? Those are all really good questions. Well then, I guess that's good. It didn't get too crazy. We didn't get out in left field with color because it keeps going from there. And I think if everyone follows those general rules and some of the stuff that came up pays attention to some of those things, you'll have awesome prints. Yeah, thanks.